Welcome to Film at 50, a podcast that celebrates semi-centennials in the world of cinema. I'm your host, Brian Rowe. Very thrilled to welcome Marcus Gorman back to the podcast to talk about a big one, the winner of the Oscar of Best Foreign Film of 1973. Today we're talking Day for Night, directed by the great Francois Truffaut. How are we doing, Marcus?
We're doing fabulous in French.
Fabulous in French.
Yes.
Had you seen Day for Night before?
I had. It was one of my first Netflix by mail movies. This and Jules and Jim, I think I watched the same day. And we're talking about this the week that Netflix has announced they are no longer going to be doing rental by mail starting in September.
Yeah. So to be honest, Marcus, so I've been doing DVD by mail since like 01, I want to say.
03 for me.
03. It was 01 or I remember I rented disc 1 of the first season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer around the end of 2001. I remember I got it through Netflix. So it had to be around there that I started it. And it's funny because I'm like, every week I get my one a week through DVD by mail on Netflix, and I'm always like, how is this still a thing? Like every time I look around, it seems like I'm like the last person on earth who does it. Mostly for this podcast, I have a lot of DVDs come in for like 73 movies that I can't find streaming. That's mostly what I've been using it for the last 3 years, is for film at 50. Sometimes movies that I don't talk about on the podcast. I'm interested in like other films of 72 or 73, and they have a lot on DVD by mail through Netflix. And then the news just came in that said in September it is ending. And hey, a great 25-year run. I would have thought they would have ended it by like 2018. So I'm happy for the last few years we had with it. I didn't think it was going to last forever.
Do you remember your first 3 discs? Because I remember mine.
No, I don't. The earliest one I remember is I rented season 1 of Buffy through DVD Netflix.
Mine was All About Eve.
Okay.
The Adventures of Robin Hood. And Capturing the Freedmans.
Wow. I don't remember what I started with. You think I would? You think that would have been a big moment for me, like in high school, getting that first DVD in the mail, and I have no recollection. I wonder what it was.
This was definitely top of my senior year of college when I was living with Jen Levin in Palms, Los Angeles. I distinctly remember like the feeling I had like in this weird apartment complex, like Rose and Overland, just off the 10.
Oh, okay. So one of your first discs was Day for Night?
Yeah.
So what
I was catching up on stuff. Go for it.
What made you want to watch this one? Was it Truffaut or?
Yeah, because I had seen, we'll get into this, but I had seen 400 Blows in high school in French class.
Oh, okay.
Which was a great introduction to it. And, we were supposed to watch it without subtitles. So she even like put up like a piece of paper at the bottom of the TV screen. This is the 90s. So it's still like a TV you roll in, but like we could see through that. And like we also watched Diva, and we also watched the French dub of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a movie I have seen probably 40 times. So I just told everybody in my class what they were saying because I knew the film that well. So we learned nothing other than Marcus has seen Roger Rabbit too many times.
That's funny. I don't have too many memories of watching movies in my French class in high school. I took French through sophomore year. I did it for 4 years. I did 2 years in middle school, and then freshman year and sophomore year. And then I had the option to do like the high-end AP honors 7-8 French for junior year. And I went, I'm out. Although I did enjoy learning the language. But one of the movies I do remember watching was a Francois Truffaut movie, which we'll talk about, which is called Small Change, which was lovely. I remember that movie well. And we might have watched The Wild Child. Vague memory of that.
You did not remember if you watched that movie. No,
we didn't watch 400. I didn't see 400 Blows until I was older.
Right.
Yeah. So Day for Night, I was like vaguely aware of the title. I didn't really know much about the movie until I started researching the films for the podcast for 73. And then when I saw that it was about the making of a movie, I got very excited.
Yeah.
And, this is quite the unique experience watching this last night. I mean, this is a terrific movie. Like I was really taken with this.
It's very lovely, and it also led to a permanent split between him and Godard, his best friend of decades. And we can get into that a little later because it's an entire documentary I watched on their relationship, and it ends in 1973.
Yeah, like apparently like Truffaut gets this letter from Godard, and Godard's
Hmm.
like, "You told a lie. This movie isn't good,"
You
and
told
it
a
just
lie.
like
This, yeah.
pushed them aside.
The
And there's a whole
troublemakers.
documentary about it.
There's a documentary about their friendship. It's called Two in the Wave. Two in the
Oh,
Wave
okay.
from 2000. It's pretty much a Wikipedia entry, but you get to see some cool interviews, and they fashion it around Jean-Pierre Léaud, who plays
Okay.
Antoine in all the Antoine movies and was in films by both of them.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to see him because obviously Truffaut liked using him in a lot of projects. Not only does he make what, 4 follow-ups to 400 Blows with that character? Isn't one a
Yep.
short?
Yes.
And
So
then
yeah, it's 5 films. Part two, Antoine and Colette, is a short that is part of Love at 20, but also exists on its own
okay.
as a short film. And then there is Stolen Kisses, number 3. There's Bed and Board, number 4, and number 5 is Love on the Run. And
Yeah.
that was from 1959 to 1979.
Right. And isn't the fourth one like 70? Like it's very at the very beginning of the decade, then the last one's at the very end. Like isn't there like a long gap between 4 and 5?
Yeah, it's 59, blah blah blah, because that's a short. 70.
And then there I
No, no.
thought
Yeah, I'm looking. 68, 70, and then 79.
okay. So yeah, so he makes the follow-ups kind of close together somewhat, and then there's that long gap,
Yeah.
and Truffaut's like, let's do one more.
Well, yeah. At that point, he had been making a few bombs. So a lot of
Oh,
times when he would return to Antoine, it's because a movie didn't do as well, either critically or commercially. He's like, let's go back to Antoine. That always seems to work.
huh. Do you know if that actor is in anything else he did outside of those movies and then Day for Night?
He is absolutely in a bunch of stuff.
Is he in the early films? I can't remember.
He's in both the early and the later films. He is. I know he's. Sorry, he's in 2 English Girls. He's in Day
Oh,
for
okay.
Night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then he's of course not in a Truffaut, but we just talked about recently he's in Last Tango in Paris, which we talked about a few months ago.
Oh, right. The Bertolucci.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Bertolucci
Yeah.
film. He's like the other kind of male figure in the main female character's life, and
Yeah.
he's also a director in that. He's also making a movie in that film. So that was kind of so he's making a movie in that, and then he's an actor in Day for Night. So, but they're kind of similar in that regard.
He's also in a bunch of Godard films. So
Oh,
they were sort of fighting over him, not like literally, but he would sort of have to jump back and forth between the two directors as they politically split throughout the years, especially after May 68 in France. And near the end of Day for Night, when he says, "Oh, I've taken this movie, Tokyo something,"
mm.
and Truffaut as the director is like, "Oh no, that's a good story." That's the deliberate address of Godard.
Oh. So he would work with both of these guys. I wonder what that actor made of the not rivalry is the word, but just like
Right.
the friendship no more between the two. I wonder how he reacted to that. He's like,
Yeah.
well, do I still work with these guys? How does this work? But yeah, he's really great in this. Like what was your reaction to Day for Night when you first saw it younger versus today? Like did it change at all? Did you appreciate it more now? Like how was your reaction?
I think I appreciated it a little more 20 years ago because that's
Mm,
only like my third French New Wave film, depending on what you want to consider this a New Wave.
okay.
Godard would say it is not. It is his most commercial film, and that's why it's garbage. At that point, I had already seen 400 Blows and Jules and Jim, but nothing else. Now I have seen every single Truffaut feature, and
Wow.
this is a very strong film, and we'll get into it. But there are certain things that Truffaut does that are really interesting that are not to my specific tastes. I prefer him when he's being very playful and silly, and this is one of those.
Okay. Yeah.
So I appreciate it now as sort of a balm against, say, a lot of his like adaptations of classic novels, because Truffaut was a voracious reader,
Mm,
and half of his stuff is either adaptations of books or he read something in a history book and decided to build a film around that, such as The Wild Child or
mm.
the story of Adele H, which is probably his most successful version of that style for me subjectively. But these are all like we Americans know like the cliche of a French film, like very distant, very quiet, very mumbly, very like what is my life? Look at these metaphors and
Look out the
symbols.
window.
look out the window. And Day for Night is not that film at all. But a
No.
lot of his other films can be. Like Two English Girls is a very strong film. I recognize what it's doing. I probably wouldn't put it on again anytime soon because it is just like, oh, woe is me. I'm in love with these two women, and one of us must die of heartbreak. He tries to take what how novels make him feel, which is not necessarily what I look for in cinema.
Mm.
But that's a me thing, and that's okay. I'm not saying these are bad movies. These are solid movies. But like his first five, along with Godard and 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 all these other filmmakers of the
Mhm.
French New Wave, they changed cinema.
Right.
Day for Night is, and I don't mean this as an offense, it is kind of just a goof.
Right. It's
It's an
kind of
ode
just
to
a
someone he
lark.
loves. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing super deep in this movie. But I mean, we've seen a lot of movies about the making of movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this to me just I love the fly on the wall nature of this film.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get super deep ever. We don't get into like the inner lives of these characters very much, but just the kind of the sweeping nature of the movie, how the camera is always just kind of roaming and you're seeing this couple talking and then they're shooting this scene and you know, both of us have made movies and it really got to the center of what it's like to make a movie, like the chaos of it, like that I haven't seen in too many films about the making of films. Like I thought, especially for this time period, which I don't know if there a lot of movies being made in the early 70s about the making of movies. I don't think there's very many of them, right?
There's always like there's no era where there aren't movies being made about making movies, but
Yeah.
certainly not like this. This seems to more inform things that come later, which might be your pairing
Oh, okay.
for this. But
Yeah.
yeah.
But I
Um,
just thought that the fly on the wall nature of the movie is what I really responded to, and it felt different from any other Truffaut movie I had seen. I've only seen like 4 or 5 of his works. I haven't seen all of them like you, but I feel like there's you know, kind of a quiet nature to a lot of his films. A little bit
mhm.
more. Let's sit with these two characters while they converse. Whereas this was just bigger and bolder and kind of like the camera going all over the place, and we get, you know, we get a big death at the end and we get lots of things happening in the movie, and it just kind of like it's a quick 2 hours. This was not like I'm like, oh, another hour. Like this movie just flew by for me. Like I thought it was really cool. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, he's very good about keeping most of his movies under 2 hours. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of his most successful movies come in around 90, 95.
Okay.
But yeah, I like the fly on the wall aspect because a lot of movies about movies tend to make up a bunch of bullcrap about
Mm,
what movies are or the process around them, like for like dramatic purposes, which is fine. But except for the fact that the movie they seem to be making doesn't seem that interesting, which is a problem with all of these films, it is very much about the process. Like this reminds me a lot of backstage musicals. Like this feels like it's about theater as well. And it gets a lot of those things really right. It just hangs out like the sequence with the actress who keeps on opening the wrong door. It
yeah.
goes on for like 10 minutes and it keeps working because he knows how to build it really well. And it's just
Mhm.
kind of a goof. And then 15 minutes later, it's the sequence with the cat, which is
That's
as exciting. Yeah, we'll shoot the scene when you find a cat who can act. I'm like, yeah, this feels like a set. Everybody's kind of bored. It's hurry up and wait. It's boredom and then absolute chaos where seemingly nothing goes right. Um, People are banging each other on the set nonstop. And it's causing a strife. You know, maybe one of your actors has a health problem or is pregnant, and you need to work around that. You need to
Mhm.
rethink the entire film. Um, like I haven't been on too many feature sets, but there's never a point where you make exactly what you set out to do, unless you're an absolute like chaotic genius,
Yeah.
or people like and I would say he's a chaotic genius. He doesn't make great movies all the time, but Michael Bay is a lot like that. He
Mm.
storyboards his things. He and Cameron like are people who are notoriously shouty on set. Cameron has now apologized. Michael Bay is still a shouty guy. I've talked to people who have worked with them. They're like, yeah, it's a lot, but they know what they want from you, and they will do anything in the world to get it out of you.
Oh wow. Yeah. Something tells me Truffaut is not that kind of director.
No, Truffaut can be a lot looser,
Yeah.
and that's what's kind of neat about his stuff. Like the special thing about his film is that they both feel loose and very well
Mhm.
considered, which is very hard to pull off because that that involves a lot of technique and trial and error.
Mm.
During his from 1959 to his death in 1983, he basically made a movie a year, and he
Yeah.
was going to make stop at 30 and then retire, but he died of brain cancer before that could happen.
He was going to keep making movies for what, 30 years?
He was going to make 30 films.
Oh, he's going to make 30
Like
films.
how
Okay.
Tarantino says he's done at 10.
10. So Tarantino's done at 10. Truffaut wanted to make 30. How many did he make total? Like 20?
Um, like 20, some depending on how you count them, between 22 and 25.
Oh, okay.
Here,
Yeah,
let me look at
I
features.
saw
You know
that
what?
this morning that he was born in 32 and he died in 84, and so he died of brain cancer at 52 years old, 51.
Yeah, yeah. He
Wow.
made 21 feature films as opposed to shorts or things he like helped work on. Like, he co-wrote Breathless with Godard,
Oh, okay. You're
and
considering just the films he directed.
just the films he directed, and not the ones that he almost directed, say Bonnie and Clyde.
Well, how did I not know that? I know, like, I read Mark Harris's book, Pictures at a Revolution. Does he talk about Francois Truffaut? What is that?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's it. I have it earmarked.
I remember the section where there were all sorts of directors being considered and attached. Truffaut was one of them. That would have been an interesting film.
Truffaut is mentioned in 100 pages of this book.
Oh, he is.
So
It's been a
because the
while since I
writers
read it.
the writers of that loved French New Wave, and they specifically wrote Bonnie and Clyde to be part of this new type of cinema, which it ended
Oh,
up being, and not in the way they anticipated. And they knew a friend of a friend who brought Truffaut in. He's like, "This is amazing. Let me work with you on this screenplay. Here's some mistakes you made." And then that sat around for a while he made other films like The Bride Wore Black, which if you specifically, Brian, have not seen, I
I haven't
highly
seen that.
recommend. The
What's that
Bride Wore
about?
Black is his Hitchcock movie. I mean,
Oh,
so is Confidentially Yours and a couple others. Like The Soft Skin is Hitchcock style, but for a melodrama. But this is like his murder suspense film
huh.
about a woman killing people who have done her wrong.
Ooh, how have I just looked at that title this morning. I was looking through for the end segment. I was like, so what have I seen of his? And I liked
Yeah.
that title. I was like, ooh, what's that about? I
And
did
that's
not know
actually
he made a suspense
accessible.
film. Oh,
Most
it's
of his films
okay.
are out of print or on very, very bad DVDs from 20 years ago,
Oh, okay.
which is shocking. Like
Because
Criterion has like 9 of his films.
really, because I was shocked to learn this morning. I'm like, oh, he had two films in 70, one in 71, one in 72. How did I not come to talk about his work until today?
Yeah.
I guess Two English Girls and A Gorgeous Girl Like Me, were they just really under the radar films? Because when I was doing my research and looking at what to do, I never really came across those two films.
Two English Girls is fairly well known, and it's a good adaptation. It's from the novelist who also wrote Jules and Jim.
Oh, okay.
Whereas A Gorgeous Girl Like Me is not very good. I would say that's my least favorite of his films. It's a
Okay.
little too loose and chaotic for me. But yeah, he wanted to make Bonnie and Clyde, and he didn't really speak English, and he was very defensive about that. So that was his issue. And then he was like, well, I'm making Fahrenheit 451. I want that to be my first English language film. But if that falls apart, let me know and I will let you know. And then after a while, like they did all the work and he came in, he's like, I'm actually not interested. I'm sorry. And he handed over to Godard for a while. And Godard tried to make it a very cheap film, which the producers and the screenwriters were like, no, sorry, you can't shoot this on a set in Jersey. Like this is a location based movie. You should shoot it in the places where Bonnie and Clyde were. And so Godard, it was one meeting and Godard pissed off and went back to France.
You're talking about Fahrenheit right now, or
I'm
Bonnie and
talking
Clyde?
about Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh, Bonnie and Clyde. Okay.
Sorry.
I thought you were saying Godard had something to do with Fahrenheit.
No.
It-
Truffaut wanted to make starting in 1960. He wanted to make Fahrenheit 451. It took 6 years to come to fruition, and then he had a very bad time on the set, especially since he did not speak English, and he was working with Oscar Werner, who's in Jules and Jim. But their relationship deteriorated immediately
oh,
upon that set. He wanted to hire Terrence Stamp for the lead, but as Guy. But then when he decided to give Julie Christie 2 roles instead of 1 as the 2 women, Terrence Stamp thought he would be overshadowed and pulled out.
oh, okay. Is that his only English language movie?
That's his only English language
Okay.
movie. He had a bad time working on it and decided never to do any of those again.
Did he ever consider doing Fahrenheit in French? Was that always going to be English language?
I don't know.
Huh. I wonder if that was ever up for debate or what, but Yeah, so he makes you're right. He's making like one movie a year. Some of these years he has two movies. And then Two English Girls, A Gorgeous Girl Like Me is 1981's The Woman Next Door, the third film in the trilogy.
The woman, no, no, no. Yeah, the woman next door is Fanny Ardant and Gerard Depardieu.
Oh, okay.
And that is on the Criterion Channel because Richard Linklater loves it, and that's Adventures in Movie Making.
Oh, okay.
So that's his choice, and you can see where obviously you can see where he picks up ideas for the Before trilogy through Truffaut's films
Oh, gotcha.
and
Okay.
Boyhood. Like the
So,
go for
but
it.
but Two English Girls and Gorgeous Girl Like Me, not big successes. Were they successful? Like, they did
I
okay.
Two English Girls is critically acclaimed.
Okay.
And he comes up with Day for Night while on the set of Two English Girls, or as he's
Oh,
editing
okay.
it. It's one of those two. It is got the idea while editing it. It's a really strong movie if you like those period pieces about like people being devastated in love and class warfare.
Okay, because I feel like Day for Night is like one of his bigger successes. Like, I mean,
Yes.
getting in to the Oscars the way it did and winning Best Foreign Film. Like, when you look at his history at the Oscars, it's pretty minimal. Like, he didn't really get a lot of appreciation there, but they really love Day for Night. And what makes the movie really meta is that Truffaut is the director in the movie.
And he's a good actor in his own movies, and of course he has a BAFTA nomination for Close Encounters. Um,
He got a BAFTA nomination
for
for Close Encounter.
for supporting actor
That's
because
cool.
the,
I
the
didn't.
Brits like him. But no, he's good. Like in, do you know what The Wild Child is about?
It's about isn't it like isn't it like a young woman, like a girl who
No,
lives in, it's not. What am
no,
I, there's
it's a young
another, there's a film we looked at in high school French class that was
it's a
about like
young
a
boy.
younger, oh, it's a boy.
Yes, that's all I mean. And Truffaut plays the doctor, and he decided to cast himself because he's like, I'll direct this
Oh,
child in front of the camera, and so I won't have to put my trust in another actor who maybe doesn't have this kid's best interest at heart. We will learn. You don't see
oh,
this in Day for Night. Truffaut works really well with children. The movie that changed cinema entirely is just about it stars a 14-year-old boy.
oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we might have watched that. I mean, I can't remember. It's been a
Yeah.
while since high school.
A young murderous girl is a gorgeous kid or a gorgeous girl like me,
Oh, okay.
which is this chaotic flashback story about a woman in a mental institution
But
telling her tale.
yeah, but that's why Day for Night feels so much like a documentary because you're watching Francois Truffaut direct a movie. So you're kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, at times I had to remind myself, no, this is a movie. This isn't just like us on the set because of the way it's filmed, a lot of handheld and walking around, and they're trying to get that cat to get in there, and the camera's like zooming in. And sometimes it feels like you're just on a set of a movie he made that just never got released. So that's what's kind of interesting about the movie, too. And a fantastic cast. Everyone's really great in this. Jacqueline Bisset is so gorgeous in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
She's so great. I don't know much about her career before this film, but I thought she was the actor in the film that really kind of stood out to me. I just found her really charming and effective in her character.
And she's the character with depth. Everybody else is sort of a
Yeah,
stereotype, which is the point. Like you bring up, like there's a death at the end, and it's the old man, and then they sort
yeah,
of gloss over it. They're like, "Oh, we just gotta change the movie." Like they're not being cruel about it. It's not like Network. It's like we must kill this
yeah.
man who is changing our ratings.
Yeah. Don't they say something about to get the insurance, you have to be wrapped in 5 days instead of 2 weeks? So you got to figure out like, do we cut this scene? Or they're like, there's not any mourning period. It's like, okay, so how do we finish the film?
Right. And it's not like Gladiator where you can like digitally insert Oliver Reed's face over somebody's body, and then it looked awkward immediately.
Yeah, one of my books is about. I wrote a book. It hasn't been published. Maybe one day about like there's a person making a film. It's like his passion project, and halfway through the production, the main actor dies, and so he's kind of like, how do I
Right.
finish the film? And the director was in love with that actor, and they were having kind of a secret relationship off on the side, and so he's like being forced to like edit a movie starring the person he loved, and that person
Right.
is now dead. So that whole element of like when you're making a film, one of the actors dies. I've always been intrigued by that idea. And you don't see it in too many movies about movies. So that was an interesting element of the ending to this too, and how everyone reacts to it. Like there's not a whole lot of sadness on the set. It's like, oh shit, what do we do now? That's like the
Right.
vibe. But it's interesting because the person who got the Oscar nomination was not Bissett, wasn't one of the main actors. I I always do my research after I watch the movie. This is one of the rare circumstances, Marcus, where I was like, who? So tell me about what's her name? Cortese. I'm just pulling it up now.
Oh, I don't know.
Valentina Cortese
Ooh.
got the Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress. She won Best Supporting Actress at BAFTA, and she was nominated at the Golden Globes. Like, okay, like I don't know how you recognize outside of maybe Bissett, who I found just really ravishing and great. Like, I don't know, like it's such an ensemble piece. There wasn't like enough depth to any one character that's like, oh, well, yeah, clearly that's the person who gets the Oscar nomination. So I wonder how that came about.
So this is the legacy nomination. She is a very
Oh, okay.
well-known actress. Like I'm introduced to her through Adventures of Baron Munchausen, where she's the queen. But no, she's
Oh,
she's a star of the 1950s, like Barefoot Contessa.
okay. So she worked in American film.
She worked in both. Let me click around. Sorry,
So
I
she's
was
in
unprepared to talk about
oh
Valentina. I know people adore her. Like my letterbox is full of like, yes, her scenes, yes, and
yeah, no, you're right.
yeah, Thieves Highway, House on Telegraph Hill. Yeah, she's in Robert Wise movies.
But
Yeah,
it's mostly foreign titles. Looking through
mostly
the
foreign
40s,
titles.
50s, mostly foreign titles. I'm not really seeing anything.
Mario Bava, Robert Aldrich.
Juliet of she's in The Legend of Lila Claire.
Yeah,
So she's kind of like the veteran actor of the movie that they decided to give her the nomination.
yeah, and also that's she gets the big comedy scene. Like the scene with the opening the wrong door is amazing, and it's
Yeah,
so
there is that
strong
scene.
because usually like jokes like that go on too long, but he shoots each take in a very different way, to, like I said earlier, build the tension but also to build the humor. And it's not just like they do the same basic thing in Babylon, when she's trying to do the first sound scene. It keeps on missing her mark, keeps on talking at the wrong
That's
level, and the guy is dying in the sound booth. um
that
and
might be the best scene in that movie.
that's the
That
best scene in the
scene
movie, but
was amazing.
that scene also goes on too long. So
Way too long,
I'm trying
but
to
great.
make them opposite, because they're doing the same joke, but one of them is going on too long, and they're both, I think, about the same amount of time. But Damien Chazelle doesn't really alternate how he shoots each sequence. It's more in
Right.
the edit. Whereas this is like each time they start, it sort of feels like a new scene, and you're brought back like, oh, we're still here again. They must have been there for like 3 days. And both scenes like deal with things you already know about film. Like in both scenes, you think about Marilyn Monroe on the set of Some Like It Hot, where like in the yacht scenes, and they had to put her lines like in drawers, and now she opens the wrong drawer, and she at that point she's going a little nuts, and she's not getting along with Billy Wilder. And I think Truffaut knows this story about Marilyn Monroe for this sequence, same as they do in Babylon.
So the scene in Babylon when they can't quite get that shot right, that's inspired by what happened with Marilyn Monroe.
Well, it's inspired by a lot of things. Like that's the biggest example, and it's dramatized in Andrew Dominic's Blonde.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I seem to be the one person who likes that film, but that's okay. I'm used to it. I know it's torturous and it's not about Marilyn's real life at all, but that's a different conversation.
The best person in that scene in Babylon is PJ Byrne.
Yes,
That
it
guy
was
is
great.
so great.
A
Just
very, very
screaming.
reliable character actor.
I feel like that long scene in Babylon, that's when I knew, sitting there like just the day after Christmas, I'm like, yeah, this movie's not going to do well, but I'm having a great time.
And that's also obviously like the whole point of Babylon is that bits of it are based on Singing in the Rain. These
Oh,
are both
okay.
inspired by Singing in the Rain.
Yeah, which Day for Night in my research said that Truffaut was influenced by Singing in the Rain. The latter was his favorite film about filmmaking because it showed everyone involved in the film, not just the director and star. So Singing in the Rain is also an influence to Truffaut here for Day for Night.
Right, and this and Babylon and the scene, certainly Babylon is influenced by when Lita Lamont is trying to find the microphone and can't, and has a horrible voice.
That's right. And I get to watch Singing in the Rain this summer. I'm doing a podcast in July
Oh,
I've
it's
only
so
seen
good.
it once, and it
Oh my
wasn't.
gosh.
It was during college. I watched it with my friend Katie. It wasn't for a class or anything. I just one of those classics I'd never seen. I'm like, I think it was a Friday night. I'm like, we're gonna. I got it on DVD Netflix. Speaking of DVD Netflix,
Yeah.
and I was like, we're gonna watch this, and we loved it. And I have not seen it since like '06.
You've
So
never seen it in the
I've
theaters.
never seen it in the theater. I've only seen it
Um,
once.
my sister went to USC. She was 2 years behind me, and I sat in on one of her classes a bunch, and that was one of them. But before it shuttered, I saw it at Cinerama in 2018, 2019, the Seattle Cinerama, which
Oh,
is
okay.
on hiatus, but is probably never coming back. And so
Huh.
seeing that on a mega screen is the best way to watch that movie.
So if it ever comes, we have some like classic film series here in Reno. Like
Yeah.
occasionally I think about going to one because they
Oh,
only
please do.
it's like Sunday at 2, like sometimes they'll have one.
Lovely.
If Singing in the Rain ever comes, I'll definitely check it out there.
Yeah,
But I am watching. I have a pretty nice TV at home.
I'm
It
sure.
won't be quite the same, but I'll watch it in the best way I ever have for the podcast in July.
So when I saw that he loved Singing in the Rain, and this was very much inspired by that, um, imagine a world where Singing in the Rain is only 22 years old. That's the world that this movie's set
Right.
in. I couldn't conceive of that. And then I went through, I'm like, wait, Singing in the Rain was only 30 years old when I was born? That sounds
Because
so strange to me.
it feels like an old fashioned movie. It feels like it's
Right.
older.
And
Yeah.
now 40 years later, it is 71 years old. And that feels normal. But like the fact that there's only 21 years between Singing in the Rain and Day for Night, but they feel from different planets.
Yeah. Now in 2023, you're like, oh, that movie I loved that came out in the early part of the 20th century. Everybody involved with the movie is now dead.
Right. I do this. I shouldn't do this, but every time there's like an animal on screen, I'm like, that cat's dead. That dog's dead.
If you watch a film made like prior to 2005, like that animal's dead.
Right. Oh, right.
Unless
And
it's
going
like a
back to
turtle.
right, unless it's a turtle. Like going back to Dead Humans, Brian. Going back to Dead Humans. That's actually one of Roger Ebert's glossary terms. I forgot what it is, but he has his book where he puts all his
Right.
terms together, and that's one of them. Is like that sinking feeling when you realize everybody on the screen you're looking at is now dead.
Yeah. Oh my God. Have you seen that joke he makes? Was it Letterman? That joke he makes where Siskel is saying that he had trouble enjoying the film 9 months because of the whole Hugh Grant scandal
Right.
around the movie. And Roger Ebert just looks at him and says, so when you watch Casablanca, does it bother you that everyone in the movie is dead? The theater erupts in laughter and applause. And it's like a 15-second, just like Siskel staring into Ebert's eyes, just pissed off as all hell. Go find that clip on YouTube. It's hilarious.
Oh, that's a very famous interview. And like we like to think Siskel and Ebert liked each other. They kind of didn't.
Yeah, it will not have dropped yet. I'm gonna drop it after this. I just had Christy Lemire on
Yeah.
to talk about Paper Moon, and I asked her a little bit about, she worked for she was on Roger Ebert's show at the movies in 2011.
Right.
And I think she had like worked with him a little bit before that. And she talked about a little bit at the beginning of our episode about, I mean, people think that it was all just for show. Like
No.
at the end, they had great appreciation for each other and they were more friends. But for a long time, they were not friendly. Like they did not get along for the longest time. And a lot of that rivalry you'd see on their show in the 70s and the 80s, especially, maybe a little bit of the 90s. But she said for a long while, they did not like each other very much.
Anytime there was like an exploitation film or like a silly studio film that one liked and the other one didn't, even going through the 90s, they would scrap.
Yeah. Have you seen that clip of them annoyed with each other? And
oh God, yes. I adore. I'm so happy that somebody thought to put every single episode on YouTube. Thank God bless you. It is a huge part of my life, and the fact that we can still watch that episode of The Critic, which is also
is it all on YouTube now? All their stuff?
Yeah, it should everything available.
Because there's a website I use here and there. It's like it's not YouTube. It's a website dedicated to their work, and they have like most of their stuff from the 70s on uploaded. And there is nothing to me, Marcus, more relaxing than just watching a very old episode of them talking about 4 obscure 1983 movies I don't know about, and them arguing about 2 of them. And I'm like, I don't even know what these movies are, but I'm just in a very good place when I watch this.
Oh, they're so good. Yeah. And
It's too
Ebert.
bad they weren't around. But real quick, it's too bad they weren't around for the early '70s for this podcast. I would love to be able to like watch the film, and then before I come on for Day for Night, to be able to
Right.
like watch the Gene Siskel, Roger Ebert back and forth about Dave. They don't start till '75, so we're
Right.
not quite there yet.
And the good news is, like, Ebert started writing in the 60s, and his
Yes,
stuff was a little shorter back then, and he adored Truffaut. So there's
yes.
so much good writing on him and his films, filtered through, young Ebert, who, just really likes a vibe, really like a lot of Truffaut films. The ones I'm not huge on are about, oh, woe is me. What, I don't understand women, but I want to bang them all the time. And that's a good third of his movies. And Ebert, he liked the women. He liked
Uh-huh.
the movies with big breasted women.
Yes.
And he's a little bit of a perv, which is why he's America's sweetheart. So I guess he felt, because like the Antoine Doinel movies I'm not huge on are where he's like, women suck, but I must still be with them. Whereas like two and three, Antoine and Colette and Stolen Kisses are more silly about them. He's like, oh, I'm kind of pathetic. Like we talked about this a bit during our Play It Again, Sam
Mm.
episode. So Woody Allen picks up a lot of stuff from Truffaut, from Godard, from Bergman, from Fellini, and a lot of Woody Allen movies are about like, oh, I love women, but they're so mysterious to me, and I'm so silly. The difference is Woody Allen knows the joke is the visual element, where he's
Mm.
this small Jewish man next to like these buxom women, these gorgeous women that he
Mm.
hires and dates in real life. Whereas in Truffaut films, he'll always hire a very handsome, stoic leading man. And so the
Mm.
joke is gone, and I just find it all a little creepy.
Mm.
So luckily, he makes a big joke out of it in Day for a Night. But one of the things Godard did not like about this film was that the Truffaut character, the director, is the only one not sleeping around, whereas Truffaut is known for sleeping around and for bedding and wedding his leading actresses.
Oh, okay.
So so Godard was mad. He's like, why are you the only character who's not doing the exact thing I know you do? This is a lie. Why aren't you telling the truth to cinema? Because at that point, Godard is like, cinema should be politics and should be truth. What in God's name are you doing? And then Truffaut wrote a 20-page handwritten letter back to Godard, calling him a piece of shit. And
In
they never
20
spoke
pages?
again. 20 pages, they never spoke again. But Godard tried to apologize to him in the meantime. And then after Truffaut's death, they released a book of like correspondence by Truffaut, and Godard wrote the intro and included at least a 20-page letter, maybe both letters, as sort of an apology.
Okay.
But so we're talking about how loose and fun this is. But the thing is, Godard is the leftist Marxist filmmaker who wants to make political films.
Mm-hmm.
Truffaut is the lyrical humanist, and he's also kind of a conservative, at least in terms of French conservatism. So they split politically, and that's what drives Godard crazy about Truffaut films, because they get a little softer as they go on, and they're not as scrappy. There's a short film they both made together called The Story of Water,
Oh,
that Truffaut shot like a lot of quick. It's about a woman and a man trying to get to Paris in a car as France has been flooded, and it's kind of this weird little comedy he shot over 2 days. Godard took that footage and he cut it up into weird pieces and put a droll voiceover over it. And most people don't like the film. I love it. It's only 12 minutes long, and it's the mix between this more, oh, I'm a voracious reader, I like these serious novels, and oh, I'm trying to redo what cinema is and have fun with it, that Godard is bringing to it, that combines them very well. And I wish they could have combined their forces more.
mm. Because wasn't there talk of them collaborating at some point again, and
Yeah,
then that just fell through after this whole mess?
right. And Truffaut tried to hook Godard up with Bonnie and Clyde, because they were obsessed with these gangster and noir films of the 30s and 40s and the 50s,
Mm.
which led to the French New Wave. And because they were both writing at Cahiers du Cinema at the same time, and came up with auteur theory and the new sentimentality, and they were trying to get rid of the fact that French movies have to be like a certain prim and proper style. And
Mm.
so for Godard's first 5 to 10 films, he does not do that. He and Godard both thumb their nose at it and, shoot off the cuff and edit weird and get into people's brains a little differently. And, they try not to do old sentimentality, which, speaking of, is things like Singing in the Rain and Doris Day and Gene Kelly and all these things. And then after the riots of May 68 in France, the demonstrations and the protests, then they completely split in how they shoot films and the stories they want to tell.
Okay.
Godard, of course, goes on for another 45 years making movies. He has
Yeah.
150 films to his name in Letterboxd.
Wow. And he just died last year.
Yeah, of assisted suicide. He went out on his own terms
Oh, okay.
because he's Swiss, and that's okay in Switzerland.
Oh, okay. Like
He's French Swiss.
What he was 91, 92, and he was
Something
getting
like
up
that.
there.
Yeah. And because they were around the same age, and they were good buddies, and they were both trained by Andre Brezin, I believe is his name, a critic they both adored. And their whole idea was like, no, we don't want to talk about these silly American movies. We want to talk about Hitchcock and Nicholas Ray and Howard Hawks, the people you think are like, B movie makers, but actually they're brilliant and we should study them. And that led to Hitchcock Truffaut, which I hope you have read.
Yes. I did want to mention that before we wrapped up the
Go
episode.
for it. No, go for it. Do Hitchcock Truffaut.
Hitchcock Truffaut is just one of the great film books ever. It's like it goes into every movie Hitchcock ever made, and they're just really informative, rich conversations about all of these movies, the big ones that we all know, and then the smaller ones that we might not. I mean, even some of those early like silent films he did, and it's just like you get a sense, and it's so cool to see two extremely talented filmmakers just having a conversation about movies, and to see just how passionate Truffaut is in 66, right? Is when they had the conversation around there, 65.
Yeah, that sounds right. The book is like just out of reach over here, and I don't know. I don't want to get up and get it because I don't know specifically where it is.
I first read it. I want to say I got it at the Loyola Marymount Library. They had it there, and I read it at school. And then after I graduated, I think I got a copy of it. And it's just, I mean, talk about just a fascinating read for any fan of Hitchcock. It's just one of the great books. I've read like 3 biographies about Hitchcock, but my favorite read about his career might be that one. It's really great. Check it out.
Good. It's from a fan. And Truffaut was a very vicious critic. That's how he like made his bones. And that's how he got his start, is being real, not cruel, but very analytical and very pointed, and saying, I know you people don't think Hitchcock is important, but look at how he constructs a scene. Look at how he constructs a sequence, a shot. These are the real guys, because they are trying to push the form forward. I listened to Roger Deakins has a podcast with his wife, the cinematographer, and they had Joel Cohen on. And Joel Cohen's like, the two directors I love. If you want to talk about how to tell a story, it's Kurosawa. If you want somebody who told very normal stories but kept on pushing the form forward, it's Hitchcock.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much appreciation Hitchcock was getting before that Truffaut book. Wasn't that kind of the beginning of like, oh wait, no, this is a much more important director than we realize.
Which is weird because it's after Psycho and after Vertigo, which are just tremendous films. Like Vertigo at one point was Sight and Sound's #1 film of all time.
Yeah, so that's strange that especially Vertigo. I could see like North by Northwest comes out, and it's just like a fun, playful adventure movie, but like, I don't know how in 58 Vertigo was just, maybe it was a movie 10 years before its time or something. Like people just didn't know what to make of it.
Right. Also, like Hitchcock movies are kind of pervy, and pervy's not in until the Hays Code goes away. So pervy's in the 70s. And, and one of the reasons the Hays Codes went away is because Americans were watching European cinema that didn't have to follow these rules. So people like Truffaut and Godard were, people in like, the Upper East Side of Manhattan were all obsessed with these European filmmakers, and studios saw that the young people were going to see these pervy European films, and so that's one of the many reasons why the Hays Code went away.
Yeah. Now, was Truffaut admired right from the get-go with the 400 Blows? Was he immediately like, because he was a critic at the beginning, right? He reviewed movies.
He reviewed movies. Let me vamp for a little bit. I want to double check on something that I got right that I saw in the documentary yesterday.
Okay.
Okay.
So I mean, his first 3 films are pretty well regarded, right? I mean, it's not like Hitchcock where it takes 30, 40 years for him to get appreciation. I feel like Truffaut at the beginning was lauded. He got the Oscar nomination in screenplay for 400 Blows right at the beginning.
Okay. So I'm caught up on this. So 400 Blows is huge immediately. So the setup is Truffaut was such a vicious critic and talking crap about French films. He was banned from Cannes in the 1950s.
Okay.
And then in 1959, 400 Blows plays Cannes because France is like, this is our film.
Did they let him come
They
for
let him
that?
back in. It was like, exactly. Like, it was such a huge deal. They basically said, never mind, whoops. And Godard is like, what are you doing at Cannes? You hate Cannes. So there's another schism between them. He's like, you're already being part of the man. And 400 Blows is a tremendous film, and so is Jules and Jim. Shoot the Piano Player doesn't quite work for me. Like, it's a great film, but he's making a gangster movie, but he doesn't seem all that interested in the gangster plot. So he makes it a
Oh.
weird comedy, which is really fun to watch, but go into it knowing that it's going to be playing around with the style.
Okay. So, but I mean, he has some appreciation. By 73, I mean, it seems like for how many nominations this movie got at the Oscars, like, and the win, that this was kind of like the homecoming, like, okay, this is really one of your finest movies ever, and we're going to finally reward you with his one and only Oscar nomination for Best Director in his entire career, which completely blew me away. I was like, wait, he only got a director nomination one time?
Right. And he gets a screenplay nomination as well.
Yeah. I mean, some of these foreign directors, you'd think they have 3 to 5 nominations. Some of them only have one, some of them have none. It's kind of amazing.
Those, I would say those are people who work more in the American English mold. Like, you know how we have, like, in our Best Picture race, we always have like a British film, something in English. The fact he only made one English film and it didn't get the best reviews, even though I'm a huge fan of Fahrenheit 451, it is goofy and silly and strange and off-putting, and I kind of adore it.
Yeah.
Most people did not.
Yeah, I remember being confused by it in 9th grade when I read the book for English class. I'm like, oh, there's a movie. Let's watch it. And I was like, what is this all about? Like, I didn't really know what to make of it. I feel like if I revisited it now, I think I'd like it better. But
yeah, and there's a sequence in Day for Night where he gets his bag of books and he's throwing them all out. You see all the directors that he loves.
I love that shot of like just
so
the stack of books. And isn't one of them Godard?
Yeah, he's like, hey, he's like, there's my buddy, and Godard probably was deeply offended by that. He's like, how dare you?
Godard's like, I am going to write this guy a letter and break up our friendship because he put a book about me in his movie.
So this is mirroring several shots in Fahrenheit 451 because he's such a voracious reader. I keep on using that word, but that's what he was. He just adored books as much as he adored film. In Fahrenheit 451, whenever they do book burning, you see every single book that gets thrown in, and they're always these classics from the last 200, 300 years. It's always the biggest books, and like there's even like some philosophy and film theory. And it's so funny to see these two shots mirror each other because one is about the destruction of literature, and the other is, oh, literature helped me find love in the cinema. And then we have in Day for Night those 3 flashbacks, the dream sequences where he's literally sitting in bed going, and you see cinema, 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 and then it goes to him as a child,
like walking in black and white, right?
Walking in black and white, and then going to the cinema and kind of bringing in the lobby cards and stealing all the Citizen Kane lobby cards, which is like, it's a lot of build up to a very simple gag. But I do love him having cinema nightmares. I'm like, I understand that. I relate to that completely. Just cinema. No, it has tortured me, but I love it.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of directors feel that way. Like, they love the art form, and then part of the art form gives them nightmares. Part of them is like, get me out of this nightmare world. And
making
it's like
a movie is so anxiety inducing. Like, it was, I'm sure you're a fan of Project Greenlight, the Matt Damon, and like he says this in the first season, I think, from Stolen Summer season. He's like, imagine the hardest thing you've ever done, then multiply it by 10. That's directing or 3. That's directing a film.
Yeah, I remember that quote from Matt Damon, because the first season I was still in high school, wasn't it? It was like the spring of 2002, I want to say, that aired.
That aired because I remember my senior year of high school. I'm a couple years older than you, and remember the first season they allowed anybody to do coverage on screenplay. So I read a bunch.
Oh,
so that was my senior year, and I think the show comes out, I think, 2002. Like my freshman year of college is 2001, 2002.
Yeah, and I like we'd never had that much access to the production of a movie, right? On Project Greenlight. Like it just showed you all the aspects. I mean, there was editing involved, so I'm sure they
Yeah.
could have taken stuff out, but like you got to see like, oh, what is the pre-production process like? The casting process. Like I had never really seen any of that until Project Greenlight. So that was a
Had
very
you
influential show.
had you gone to Sundance before Project Greenlight?
So I went in January of 03, which was that the month, that was the month where I went to the night they announced the winner of season 2.
Shaker Heights, Battle of Shaker Heights, starring Shia LaBeouf.
I went to like I didn't have access into the theater, but we went down there because it was insane. Like there were like police cars. We were like, what's going on down there? We walk up, and then right as we get up to the front, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck get out of the car. So yeah. And then I saw it later. I was like, oh, that's the night that they announced the winner of season 2.
So I've never been to Sundance proper, but my image of it is built from Project Greenlight and that one episode of Entourage where Maury Chaykin plays Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah. I had such a different experience this last January. It did not feel like the Sundance of 20 years ago. It was
no.
very cold. It was snowing, and I was just doing a lot of walking. And I remembered some of the theaters, but then they had new theaters that I'd never been into before, and I just remember it like it was a lot more chaotic back in 03, and you had to like, you know, everything was by hand, everything was like physical, and now you just take your phone and go boop boop, and then they just let you into the theater, and it was so much more seamless. It was easy.
Yes, that sounds wonderful. The 20 years ago one sounds chaos. I would hate it.
Yeah.
But no, in season 2, for Battle of Shaker Heights for Project Greenlight, this is so long ago that, you know, when Shia LaBeouf is there at Sundance, he's like, oh, you're going to meet with Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez. And then this is so long ago that Shia LaBeouf, you know, megastar, and also has gone through his own tabloid stuff. He's just a little kid at this point, and he's like, he turns to the camera, like, oh, no big deal. It's like, oh, I met with Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez is just sitting there. This is so surreal to me. Baby Shia LaBeouf, who I also worked with that year in my Loyola Marymount TV project.
You worked with Shia LaBeouf?
I worked with Shia LaBeouf when he was 16 or 17, because in the TV class, I wrote an episode, and my producer worked on the Disney Channel. He was on not
even Stevens.
He was on Lizzie McGuire, but I guess all the kids know each other. This is Devon Nixon, who plays Joe Morton's son in T2 Judgment Day.
Oh, okay.
So he brought in Shia LaBeouf, who he knew through Disney. So I have 16, 17-year-old Shia LaBeouf improvising way too much for my liking in this live TV project when I'm 20 years old. And it's a great experience. I have it on video somewhere. It's called Stealing the Night Away. It's about two burglars who break into a home, and then the older couple comes in, but the woman's like, oh honey, you bought me a stripper, thank you so much. And so Shia LaBeouf has to do some stupid fake stripping on this middle-aged woman, and he's a teenager at this point. He's very funny. I didn't direct it very well. I should not have directed it. That was one of the many things in film school that taught me, you're a writer.
So you directed Shia LaBeouf on this project. So went from Marcus Gorman to Michael Bay to Steven Spielberg.
This is right before the Project Greenlight season happens.
Oh, okay.
So I get to him right before that season.
So what are you when you're going to see Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? Like, what's going through your mind?
I'm like, oh, you're out of place. No, I was really proud of him. I was proud of him in the Transformers movies too. Not that he like remembers me at all.
Right. He doesn't send you a Christmas card or anything.
No. And also, this is so long ago. So I had like a cassette camcorder, not a digital one, and we did pre-roll. We did B-roll at Devon Nixon's house and in Santa Monica. And I was like, there's a lot of Debbie Allen posters around here. Is your dad like a fan of Debbie Allen? Turns out that's his stepmom. So Shia LaBeouf is just hanging out in Debbie Allen's house. And I didn't put this together until 15 years later.
That's funny.
So yeah, we're telling film school stories because this is a story about film school, and you're saying this is very accurate depiction of making a movie, like probably more accurate than State and Maine or The Stuntman or Soap Dish or even America's Sweethearts, all these movies that you could pair with these ones. And clearly the Coen brothers like this movie because they make Hail Caesar, which is like Babylon, but I would say much better.
Right.
Basically, it's a whole mini series of You Best Remember This in a 2 hour package. But no, they must adore this film because it has that weird, not nihilistic, not misanthropic, but like humans are dumb, but they get stuff done kind of mentality, which is what Day for Night is really about. Is like Truffaut was making a movie about the highs and lows of cinema, how he
Yeah.
adores it, how it drives him crazy, and it comes out this sort of lighthearted comedy with very soapy elements that are not treated soapily, which is what he does. He likes to distance himself a little bit, make things a little more disconnected. So he's not manipulating you. This is
Mm.
not a very manipulative film, and I appreciate that about it.
One of the few manipulative moments, though, Marcus, I would say, is the opening, because he opens the movie like you're watching a real movie, and then the
Yeah.
camera pulls back and you see, oh, this is the making of a movie. But it's manipulative in a really good way. Like, I was like,
Yes.
oh, okay, this is
It's
cool.
it's yeah,
Like
it's here's what you see and here's what it actually is.
yeah.
And then like in my memory, I remember that sequence going on for longer, but then
Mhm.
turns out it was just good editing because they have to do that slap so many times, and the only thing that ruins the shot is the slap, which is the
Yeah.
running joke. It's always the thing at the end. And usually in movies, like they start with the fake out, like it's a stunt, and then suddenly the stunt goes wrong, and then they pull back, like cut, blah blah blah, bell ring. Oh, let's try that again. And they movies about movies tend to do that thing where they like, because you ruined the stunt at the end, the six preceding shots are ruined, which is of course bullshit. This one actually shows you a full crane and tracking shot through this through
Yeah.
this lovely Parisian street in Nice that was already
Yeah.
there, that had been used for other films. So that's part of the joke as well. It's an in joke for people who have seen that set before.
Yeah, that I also found interesting. I remember there's a shot in the movie that's a long crane shot. It goes up, 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 and we're seeing the making of the movie. And so I found that interesting because it doesn't always have that like handheld feel. You're just like watching a documentary feel. Like sometimes it'll have like a kind of a really nice shot that's cinematic, but it's pointing down at the making of a movie. I thought that was an interesting parallel.
It's really cool. And I think my favorite parts of this movie is what you're saying is just the fly on the wall stuff, where he's just showing you the tricks that go into movie making. Like early on, we get the candle trick, the light inside the candle, and she can't move it very much, and which becomes an issue later. And those are the best parts, where he's just showing you how the sausage is made.
Right. Yeah, and well, I think it's funny something you said earlier, like you don't know if the movie that they're making is that of interest. I mean, what does Bissett say? So it's called Meet Pamela, and it's about a woman who falls in love with her fiance's father or husband's father.
Yeah, I believe fiance's father, and
Fiance's father, and then
yeah.
she's also falling in love with an older man on the set of the movie, right? That
Right,
wasn't part of the movie. Like when she's kissing that guy, the older
right,
man, like by the trees. That was the movie, not in the like the making of it.
right.
Sometimes that's one of the frustrations, but sometimes I wasn't clear. Like, wait, is this them acting in the movie or the making of the movie? Sometimes scenes are so short that I'm like, wait, was that? You have to really be paying close attention
Right.
to see what's happening here.
But also maybe that's the point. Maybe cinema and life are intertwined for better or for worse.
Would you want to see Meet Pamela if that were a movie?
That is not my kind of film. No. Like I hopefully he's making fun of the movies that I don't respond to as well from his oeuvre.
Right.
Because like that stuff my wife would like when she puts on like a costume drama before like a certain era or of a certain tone, I kind of tune out, and she knows that. And so sometimes if I have to do like busy work on my computer, or if I like want to watch like a hockey game on my phone on silent, she'll put on a costume drama that she will adore. Like because you talked to her in your sister's episode,
Yeah, sisters.
and she reads a novel every week. Like this is what she does, and she relates to Truffaut, especially how he made Fahrenheit 451, which she thinks is a great adaptation. She's like, oh no, that was pretty much the book, which I've never read because I'm a dummy, and I haven't seen the Michael B. Jordan Ramin Barani one that came out a couple years ago.
Yeah,
that
I didn't
people
like
said
it.
was terrible. Okay, I'll watch it, but I really enjoyed Truffaut one.
There had been so much buildup. I want to say for 20 years, you kept hearing like, oh, this director and that director are gonna make the new Fahrenheit. And it would I just think that would make like a major, like big budget movie. I think it'd just be fantastic. And the HBO movie was it was okay. It was just kind of a letdown. It had great talent in it, but there was just something missing. It lacked something.
Yeah,
I
well,
didn't see.
it premiered at a festival and then they shunted it over to HBO. It was not an HBO film, and that's
Oh,
never
okay.
a good sign. Also, like I
Yeah.
don't really like HBO original films that much. The one I do love, we've talked about already, Angels in America.
Oh,
But
right.
I actively do not watch because they're mostly biopics,
Hmm.
and I don't like biopics that much unless they're really strong. Like I just rewatched People versus Larry Flint. That's a strong film. It has a
Mm.
purpose and a weird entry point, and is kind of beautiful. Whereas your monthly Saturday night HBO original movie is just something that wasn't good enough to be in theaters.
Right. I tried not to think of it that way. I mean, now it's like really when a movie drops on Apple TV Plus or Netflix, I do still have that mentality to this day, like, oh, it wasn't good enough to go to the theater.
Which is
Even
not
though
fair. That's not fair.
sometimes they're really good. Sometimes they're really, and obviously when we get to the end of the year stuff, that some of it drops on Netflix, like a lot of that can be great.
It can be.
But when we're in March, April, I'm a little bit hesitant of like what's coming down the
Yeah.
pike. Netflix original movies, Apple TV Plus.
So I haven't looked into if Truffaut liked Fellini at all, and maybe
Oh,
this is
okay.
just like maybe this is like, oh, I've seen only a few Fellini films. I'm getting strong 8.5 vibes from this. Do you
Mm.
think he was influenced by 8.5?
It's weird that I looked in the two websites I looked at, I didn't see anything about 8.5. You would think that 8.5 would have been a major influence on this.
Right, they're
There's
both
a lot of similarities.
self-reflexive. Yeah, they're self-reflexive, but in completely different ways.
Yeah. I mean, so that came out in 63, right?
Yeah,
Like they're like over those 10 years. I mean, I'm sure he saw 8.5. Like he can't have just avoided that and been like, what is that movie?
yeah.
I'm
Whereas
sure he saw it.
Fellini's very direct in his emotional content, and that's what's really lovely about him. Whereas Truffaut doesn't want to manipulate you in that sentimental way. I wouldn't say Fellini is problematically manipulative, and I really like Fellini stuff because they're so lush and colorful and playful. And 8.5 is a devastating story, but he really understands Contini as a
Mm.
lead character, because like Godard probably would think 8.5 was masturbatory, whereas I'm sure he wishes Day for Night was masturbatory, but it's not. He's like, you should dig deeper into why you're a piece of crap. Why aren't you betting that? Why aren't you, as the person playing the director, betting all these women? I know you. I know you, dude.
Godard sounds kind of like an asshole.
Oh, he's a huge asshole. Oh no, so that's what kind of has kept me away from some of his films. But I do, now that I've seen every Truffaut film, and the ones I hadn't seen, I watched them. I binged them over the last 2 weeks, and it was incredible. I kind of had to go out of order for that reason,
Right. That's awesome.
which isn't great. But I would love to do that with Godard. But have you seen Agnes Varda's Faces Places?
No.
So
I need to
that's a
see her
doc.
work. I don't know if I've seen any of her film.
Um, if you see one, I would say Cleo from 5 to 7.
Okay, I know that
A
title. Yeah,
tremendous film.
Is
Tremendous
that
film.
what decade is that film? Like when was
That's
that?
the early 60s, I believe.
That's the
She's part of the
60s.
French New Wave,
Oh, okay.
with the two of them, and I'm Eric Romer, and I'm
Oh, right.
forgetting. Yeah. Um, but
Godard, I don't know what film of his we could talk about in this podcast. He had one I actually considered
let me see.
called Tout va bien.
Yeah.
With Jane Fonda. That dropped in February of 73. I looked at it. I want to say the reviews were kind of so-so, and I was like, it didn't feel like when I had to.
Two
But
Fob Ben, yeah.
the next one isn't until 1975, Numero Deux, and
Yeah.
then 76, How Is It Going? I don't know much about those. So I
Well,
don't
this
know
is
what we can
because
talk about.
once May 68 comes around, he completely changes how he wants to make film. He wants to make things specifically for political purposes. So he stops making the films that you and I know. The 60s is when we know him from, when he and
Okay.
Truffaut are breaking all the rules. But so in Faces Places, this is a spoiler. So Agnes Varda goes around with an artist who they go to like provincial towns and like take photographs of these lovely villagers or just people or workers who are not big deals, and they print them on like the sides of skyscrapers and buildings to make a point that like you matter. And near the end of the film, Agnes goes, she calls Godard. She's like, I'm coming to your house with a camera crew. Do you want to hang out? He's like, sure. And then she goes outside of his house. He never leaves. He doesn't pick up his phone, and she has to turn away. She's like, you son of a bitch. So his last real thing on cinema is being a villain to her, to the point that I think he should have been nominated for MTV Movie Award for Best Villain. It's the meanest thing I saw in a film that year was Godard not giving his old friend the time of day because I guess he didn't feel like it. There's a biopic by Michelle Hazanavicius, who made The Artist,
Mm.
um, called Godard Mon Amour, which is not a very deep movie, but around the time he's making La Chinoise. It's through the guise of one of his wives,
Oh, okay.
and that is a good primer on him being a freaking asshole, but also a genius.
I think I've only seen three of his films. I've seen Breathless, I've seen
Hmm.
Contempt, and I've
Uh-huh.
seen Weekend.
Those are the
Maybe
ones.
Masculine Feminine. I might have seen that one.
Masculine Feminine, I've definitely
Masculine
seen.
Feminine.
That was one of my early Netflix movies.
Oh, okay. But so yeah, it's really his early work I'm sort of familiar with. After the set, like 1970, it's a lot of titles I've never heard of.
Right, and then he started making these montage based documentaries. Yeah, he does not care what anybody else thinks post late 60s.
If you look on IMDb, it's like most of the films it says director short, and then it's just his face. So is there just some like massive box set of like 80
Right.
shorts he made out there somewhere?
Yeah, I haven't seen Pierre LeFou, but that's one I really need to see.
Yeah. So he, I mean, I would like to at some point talk about his career a little bit. Maybe I'll find something. I don't know. I mean, I guess I could do Tout va bien the summer or something. The summer of 73 is kind of lacking. There's not a whole lot of great stuff in the summer of 73. So maybe I'll get to him like in July. We'll see. Maybe I'll do that one just for fun. But yeah, Truffaut, I would say people liked better.
He was more commercial.
His films more. His films are more commercial. Yeah.
Right. No, whereas Godard is aggressive.
Right.
And and America doesn't always respond to that. I'm sure France was like, we gave you this career and now you're already pissing us off. What do you want from us? Let's follow our golden boy Truffaut, who was able to make a movie a year, Woody Allen style.
Yeah. I always admired when someone could pump out one a year, versus like an artist who is giving us great material, but you have to wait and you have to wait and you have to wait and you have to wait. Obviously, if they're making one a year, not all of them are going to be great. But I've always admired that mode of like let's just keep working.
Which is in the direct middle between how movies are made now. It's like a director gets one every 4 or 5 years, and the studio system of the 30s, 40s, and early 50s, where you couldn't direct 3 movies a year. Yeah, which is a little much. Like Michael Curtiz, who's made incredible films, has also made a lot of garbage.
Right. And that's what makes it hard sometimes to study some of the older filmmakers. It's like, okay, they had 4 films in this year. I'm like, am I going to watch all 4 of them?
Right. Day for Night really works because it's about the effect that film has on people, and people doing the things they love. Like at the end of David Mamet's State and Maine, which I brought up earlier, you know what the final line of that movie is?
I have not seen that movie since 2000. Tell me.
I believe it's Alec Baldwin who plays the actor. He says, "Beats working." Cut to black. Perfect.
It's working.
And so
that's great.
So Truffaut was going to make 3 movies about this kind of stuff, about the creation of art. In 1980, he makes The Last Metro, which for somebody who doesn't like costume dramas that much, is a lovely film. It is about a theater company in Nazi-occupied Paris, and they are hiding the playwright and director in their basement because he's Jewish. So it's Gerard Depardieu as a new actor and Catherine Deneuve as the older actress, trying to do progressive and political theater without getting in trouble, and that's from 1980.
Okay, yeah, I know the
yeah.
cover of that. It's like a Criterion release, right? And it's like big letters of The Last Metro. I don't know why I've never seen that one.
Well, and that's the Criterion cover. The actual cover is much more interesting. It's them opening a manhole, and the manhole has a swastika on it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the Criterion cover makes it a little less fun than I think the movie is. It's certainly one of those more dour films because it's about Nazis and the Holocaust. But he was going to make a 3rd movie about like building up the art, probably about music or literature, but then he died.
Oh, okay.
So
that's what
he was
prepping it, or he just was thinking about it.
I think he was thinking about it. He's somebody who thinks about a lot of stuff, and then it gets made 5 years later.
Oh, okay.
Sort of like, I know we keep bringing him up. Woody Allen has that bin of log lines in his closet, and then when he's out of ideas, he goes in and grabs one. That's how Midnight in Paris happened. That was a log line that he wrote in the 70s, and that's why it feels like a 70s movie.
Oh, right. Like when you just have like a bin of ideas and you just fish one out and you go, oh yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I have this quote here. It said that Day for Night was based on an original idea by Truffaut, who said he wanted the picture to do for film what Fahrenheit 451 did for books, to show why it's good to love the cinema. This does not feel in any way, like he's talking down to movie. Like, this feels very much like a celebration of the making of a movie, even though there's a lot of emotions. Sometimes there's frustration on the set, and some of the actors are mad and they can't quite get that shot with the cat. And like, it feels like a celebration of what movies can be, and that's what I really responded to, and that's why I think the movie did so well with critics and with the awards. Like, this is a great piece of filmmaking about filmmaking that we don't see very often. So Roger Ebert gave the film 4 stars. He said it's not only the best movie ever made about the movies, but it's also great entertainment. And Gene Siskel gave the film 4 stars, calling it a movie about the making of a movie. It's also a wonderfully tender story of the fragile, funny, and tough people who populate the film business. Siskel named it the best film of the year on his year-end list, the #1 movie of the year. So critics were really going gaga for it. Vincent Canby of the New York Times loved it. It's one of the 2 Truffaut films on Times Magazine's list of the 100 best films of the century, along with, what's the other one?
Of the century?
What would be the other one that's on that list, the top 100 films?
I don't know.
400 Blows.
Okay, good.
Which would make sense to me. That's probably, would we say the 400 Blows is his most watched beloved movie of his career? Is that the one most people know?
Yes. And I mean, a lot of people know Jules and Jim, but he says like it's an intentionally boring movie. Stevie's only seen like 4 of his movies, but she thought 400 Blows was okay, but she really liked Day for Night.
I like the coming of age element of 400 Blows. It's just like,
I love
it's like
coming
a really
age.
Great, like, that's the genre I've always responded to in movies, and I think it's one of the best. Like, you really get a sense of that kid like coming into his own.
Right. Well, I mean, you heard on her episode that she's not a huge fan of 70s movies because they're a little too formless for her. She likes form, and that's not what you're going to get out of early Truffaut.
Right. Well, didn't she also say she doesn't like 70s movies that much because a lot of them are about like white men's problems?
Yes. She can't stand that. Any of that. She can't stand any of that.
I said, so you don't like 5 Easy Pieces? She was like, no.
Her dad loves 5 Easy Pieces. He quotes it a lot.
That's my favorite film of 1970. So I'm like, oh, what are the best ones I've looked at for the podcast? And 5. I don't think you'd like 5 Easy Pieces.
I want to know what my favorite movie of the 70s of 1970 is, but that might take some time.
1971 was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, followed closely behind by the Bogdanovich film, The Last Picture Show. And then 72 is Godfather and Cabaret. I wanted to find a movie in the last 9 months of last year, like, what's something that maybe doesn't surpass those 2, but is at the level of The Godfather and Cabaret, and I never found one. I was like, well, nope, those are the 2 best.
1970.
But as we start wrapping up our conversation here about Day for Night, I want to talk about the Oscars a little bit, which on Film at 50, we're going a bit into the future, because this movie, it was its first screening, I want to say, was like in May of 73. Like, that's where it kind of opened overseas, and it got nominated for Best Foreign Language Film at the 1974 Oscars. It didn't actually come out in the United States until 1974. So the 3 big nominations it gets the following year, in 75, we get Best Director, Best Screenplay, and Best Supporting Actress. So we're going all the way to 1975 here, and we're recording this in April of 73. I feel like I'm going into the future here, Marcus. But but they don't have that now. That's the rule that they later did away with, where like if your movie is nominated for Best Foreign Language Film, like, it can't be released here until the next year, I think was a rule they had for a while. Now that rule isn't in existence, but at the 74 Oscars, it won Best Foreign Language Film up against The House on Charlotte Street, The Invitation, The Pedestrian, and Turkish Delights. Have you seen any of those?
I looked through that. I hadn't even heard of a single other one of those.
So that probably also helped Day for Night in winning.
Yeah. And the Oscars love movies about movies and movies that are positive about movies, as opposed to Blonde and Babylon not getting the love that was expected from the Academy, because those are
Yeah.
anti-film films.
Till Oscar night, I was like, Babylon is gonna win best production design, and like, no, that's not gonna
Yeah, and then instead they gave it to Netflix for digging holes in the ground. Great production design.
win. Oh, best score. Best score was the other one. I was like, it's gonna win that,
Of course,
right?
it's an
Nope. Okay.
incredible score. No, like even like Chazelle's films go from like good to great, but the scores are always incredible.
Yeah.
He's such a good composer, and Babylon is an amazing score.
It's so good. That to me was
It
the
will
best
last.
scorer of the five. I was like, why
Oh
would
yeah,
that not win?
it will last in movie trailers for another 15 years.
Yeah. So Day for Night comes out in the United States in 74, and it gets in to three categories at the 1975 Oscar ceremony: Best Original Screenplay, Best Supporting Actress, and Best Director. In screenplay, it's up against Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, The Conversation, Harry and Tonto, and Chinatown.
Oh wow,
Chinatown wins. That's a category. The only
that's a
one I haven't
great
seen
one.
is Harry and Tonto. I haven't seen that.
I saw that last year.
Who's in that?
Oh, he's from the Honeymooners.
Oh, Jackie Gleason.
No, the other one. No, I'm blanking. No, he's like he's in Going in Style. He's here. Hold on. Harry and Tonto is
Harry and Tonto.
yeah. No, it's a road trip between an old man and his cat. Art Carney.
That's the one that wins Best Actor, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
Art Carney.
It's a legacy
Oh,
win
okay.
for him, but he's also wonderful in it. But that's a Mazursky film. I think it's lovely. It's a coming of age for a man in his 70s.
I feel like that's an actor win that's been hated for many decades, like because he beats out like Al Pacino and Jack Nicholson. And it's like a stacked category of like all timers, and then people are like, Art Carney wins for Best Actor.
And
I've heard that before.
What year is that?
So that's 74.
1974 Oscars.
Oscar 75. It gets confusing because it's like if you go to the Oscar website and type
47th Academy Awards.
If you type on the Oscar website Oscar 1974,
right,
it'll bring up the celebration of movies that came out in 73.
Okay, yeah, it's Art Carney, Albert Finney as Poirot, Dustin Hoffman as Lenny Bruce, Jack Nicholson, Al Pacino. Art Carney is the best performance of those five.
That's your favorite? Okay.
I mean, those are all excellent. Like I saw Murder on the Orient Express, the old one, for the first time last November on a plane, and it's incredible.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
And I watched Lenny recently because Blank Check did their miniseries on Bob Fosse, and that's a really cool movie. It's really messy, and Dustin Hoffman really gives it his all. But Dustin Hoffman, as we know now, is kind of an a-hole, and that kind of comes across. Jack Nicholson, Jack Nicholson in Chinatown, Nicholson's an observer, and that's not his greatest performance. And Pacino in Godfather Part 2 is very internal. He's much better in Godfather Part 1. These are all my subjective opinions. Don't come for me. Harry and Tonto is a lovely road trip, and it has a lot of cat time, and I like both road trips and cats.
Well, that's right. Well, everything worked out for Nicholson because he had to just wait one more year for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Pacino would eventually win for Scent of a Woman, but a lot of people don't really think that was the one to win for. But he finally got one. Hoo-ha! And then, so let's see. So that was Best Original Screenplay. I haven't seen Harry and Tonto, but I think Chinatown makes the most sense there.
Yes.
That's a great script. In Supporting Actress, Valentino Cortez was up against Madeline Kahn in Blazing Saddles. That is a great Oscar nomination.
Oh, right. And Madeline Kahn, I was like, why isn't she up for Paper Moon? That was the previous year.
Yeah, she was up for Paper Moon. We just talked about that. And Madeline Kahn has a quote saying, like, I was the best supporting actress in Paper Moon. Tatum O'Neal was the best lead actress.
Oh, yeah. No, it's category fraud.
Tatum O'Neal is in an hour and 7 minutes of the movie. She's in like 67% of it. It's the most any actor in the history of movies has been in a film and won in the supporting category. It's the longest performance ever.
Who would she have lost to in Best Actress if they put her in that category?
So I thought Ellen Burstyn had a pretty good shot for The Exorcist. She was up there.
Right.
But then Ellen Burstyn wins a year later for Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. So
yeah,
all these weird things. It's like, if this person had won then, would they have won the next year? You never know.
Yeah. You and I both listen to This Had Oscar Buzz, and they talk about that constantly.
Yeah. Those are like my two favorites. This Had Oscar Buzz and Blank Check. I'd been hearing about Blank Check for years, and I finally when they started the John Carpenter series, I was like, oh, we're gonna listen to this. And when they had that 3 hour plus episode about Halloween, and it was so well researched, I learned things I didn't know about my favorite horror film. I've been hooked ever since. So I've gone back to listen to a couple of them. I'm listening to their Nora Ephron series right now.
Yeah, good.
Really good.
I haven't listened to all that, but I did listen to the This Is My Life, which is one of my favorite films.
Yeah, I just listened to that, and then I'm about halfway through Sleepless in Seattle right now.
Cool. So yeah, supporting actors that year. So it's Valentina Cortese, Madeline Kahn, Blazing Saddles, Diane Ladd, and Alice Doesn't Live Here anymore.
Great performance.
And then when they turn that into the show Alice, they cast that with another actress, but then Diane Ladd comes onto that show as a different character.
Oh, interesting.
And then only lasts a season. And Talia Shire, Godfather Part 2, she's incredible in Godfather Part 2. And then it goes to Ingrid Bergman for Orient Express.
They give it to Ingrid Bergman for Murder on the Orient. That's an interesting one because she had already won 2. That was kind of like a legacy win, right? Just like, oh, we'll give it to Ingrid. Yeah. She's not doing anything really great in Murder on the Orient
Express.
Good. She's good in it. But
and in the Branagh version, that's the Michelle Pfeiffer character, and she doesn't do much with it.
Oh, that's who Pfeiffer plays in that movie.
I believe so. They just on Oscar Buzz they talked about the Branagh.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it always boggles my mind that Diane Keaton did not get an Oscar nomination for either of the first 2 Godfather movies. I think she's great in the second one.
She's great. I think Talia Shire kind of runs away with the whole series.
Yeah,
but people don't like that because it's nepotism.
Yeah,
but no, I know you like Diane Keaton quite a bit.
Yes, I'm a big Keaton fan. And in director, Truffaut is his only Oscar nomination for Best Director. He was up against Roman Polanski for Chinatown, Bob Fosse for Lenny, John Cassavetes for A Woman Under the Influence, and Francis Ford Coppola for The Godfather 2, who wins. That is also a stacked category. Holy cow.
I was wrong. Penelope Cruz is the Bergman character.
Oh, okay.
But they rewrote the character.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay. As sorry about that. As you were.
That's so funny that you would say, like, I just spent 10 days making a Michelle Pfeiffer video, and then I just spent the last 5 days making a Penelope Cruz video. It's funny that you would have confused Michelle Pfeiffer with Penelope Cruz. They're
the exact same person. No, Michelle Pfeiffer's on the brain because you must remember this just did their Thelma and Louise episode of Erotic 90s. Oh. And the studio wanted Jodie Foster and Michelle Pfeiffer in those roles.
Right. So I talked about how Michelle Pfeiffer was offered The Silence of the Lambs and turned it down because she was uncomfortable with the subject matter. I was going to go into a couple of the other films she turned down in the 90s that went on to get Oscar nominations, but the video was just becoming so big and bloated. It's like 37 minutes long. I was like, okay, we'll talk about Silence of the Lambs. That needs to be talked about. But Thelma and Louise has such a long history. There were so many different combos. I'm like, if I talk about this, Brian, it's going to be 4 minutes. Like, it's going to go on forever. So we'll just bypass that for now.
My favorite of those nonsense ones is, you remember who was originally supposed to be in Bad Boys?
No.
Dana Carvey and John Lovitz.
With Michael Bay directing.
I'm not sure if Michael Bay was attached at that point.
They made a shift on that one.
A huge shift.
And then lastly, Day for Night also received 3 BAFTA nominations: Best Film, Best Director, Best Supporting Actress for Cortez. At the Golden Globes, it was nominated for Best Foreign Film and Supporting Actress for Cortez. So the big win was in 1974 when it got Best Foreign Language Film at the Oscars, up against 4 movies neither of us have heard of. I don't know if I'll get to any of those 4 films on Film at 50, but if any of you recommend one of them, if one of them's really great, let me know. All right. So I was really happy with Day for Night. You know, there's some great films about the makings of movies, but I mean, off the top of my head last night, I'm like, I mean, I can't really, like, there's like 3 or 4 that come to mind, but it's not like there's 30. There's not like a ton of them. And it was just a really special movie, watching a great director being passionate about his art form and taking chances, and it not being all dour and you know, dim. Like, it's really got some lovely moments of humor, great ensemble cast, and it is a little long at 2 hours, but it flew by for me. I was really happy with Day for Night. It's one of the best films I've looked at for 73 so far.
Oh, that's good. Maybe that means 73 sucks, as you said. Like, there's nothing going in the summer until Jesus Christ Superstar in August.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, there's only like 3 major films in June and July that I know of that I've seen. It's
totally
Live and Let Die is one, and then American Graffiti is one, and then there's one other one for June, but it's mostly films that I have not seen. That's what I mean by it. I mean, I might
gotcha.
make some great discoveries in June, July, but like on my list, there's like 7 titles that I don't really know much about. So I'm kind of nervous. I'm like, okay, are these going to
Right.
be good?
Right. Whereas I assume you're covering all the Best Picture nominees for 73.
Yeah,
I'm looking at them right
my
now.
rule is if it got into picture, director, actor, or actress, I have to do an episode. If it's supporting
Cool.
categories or screenplay, I get to decide.
Oh, good. Yeah. So Best Picture, that's The Sting, American Graffiti, Cries and Whispers, Exorcist, and A Touch of Class.
Yeah. So Touch of Class we're talking about in June. That came out in May/June, and my frequent guest Cody Derricks
Yeah.
said it's the worst. What did he say? It's the worst movie he's ever seen, or the worst movie that's ever won an Oscar. One of the two.
Right. Yeah.
He
I
said,
think we
Brian,
follow
do
each other on
not.
Twitter now.
He
Yeah.
said, do not have me come on for
Oh
that
no,
one.
the Oscars are constantly making dumb decisions. We both know this.
He said, I think he has it like at a half star or something on Letterboxd.
So things that
I'm
could have
like,
been
it
there.
won Best Actress. It's in Best
Right.
Picture. It can't be that bad.
I
Give me
mean,
a break.
plenty of acting Oscars go to terrible films, and that's that. You know,
Yeah.
those are different things. But like Last Tango could be there, The Last Detail could be there, Serpico could be there instead.
Right.
Cinderella Liberty, The Way We Were. These are all
Yeah.
big movies.
No, we've got some good ones coming up.
And Paper Moon's not nominated for Best Picture.
That was surprising to me. Paper Moon is probably as we'll get into in a few weeks on the podcast. Paper Moon is so far my favorite of the films I've looked at since February, and that shocked me when I learned that it's not up for picture, it's not up for director. I'm like, why did they not respond to this well enough to get it into those 2 categories?
I sprung that movie onto Stevie right before the Polly Platt miniseries on You Must Remember This started, and she adores Paper Moon. She's like, that's the best movie I've ever seen.
It's so great. Like, if Cody is right about A Touch of Class being not so great, why would that get into Best Picture over Paper Moon? It's surprising.
Because Bob at that point Bogdanovich was already in for Last Picture Show.
Yeah, so he was like he'd been there before. Paper Moon was a hit at the box office. People liked it.
People loved What's Up, Doc?
What's Up, Doc? So that is strange to me that they got it into 2 nominations for supporting actress, and it got into screenplay, but it's not in picture director. It's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so that takes us to our final 2 segments. The first one is the Divine Double Feature. What's a modern film we would pair with Day for Night, Marcus?
So I decided not to go with the obvious Babylon or Hail Caesar.
Okay.
Which is fine. But maybe I'm wrong, but it might just be the era of costumes. But there was a real Altman energy to this film that I really enjoyed. It was, loose and ensemble-y and people talking over each other. So I choose your pick of his final 2 films. 2003's The Company with Nev Campbell about a ballet company, or 2006's A Prairie Home Companion.
Okay.
This nice. I felt a lot of Day for Night and Prairie Home Companion and vice versa, which are 2 very loose films. One's way warmer. Prairie Home Companion is warmer. The Company is almost a documentary.
Yeah, The Company was a big night for me because I went to see that at the premiere at the AFI International Film Festival in Los Angeles.
Oh, nice.
And Nev Campbell was there, and I'm a huge Scream fan, so I got to meet her, and I talked about that recently on the podcast, actually, like meeting Nev Campbell. And the movie is a complete, like, I have no memory of the movie at all.
It's cool. I was going to ask you, how did the audience respond to that movie? I saw it like by myself on like a single screen theater on Santa Monica Boulevard.
Yeah, I think I was so worked up about seeing Sidney Prescott in person that I didn't quite pay as close attention to the movie as I should have. And that was, I think, with Robert Altman as the director, The Company was expected to be an Oscar player, and that just like came and went. Like that just like faded from memory very fast. I feel like more people know A Prairie Home Companion more than they do The Company.
Well, also because it has stars, like 20 megastars.
Yeah, it's got like everybody.
Whereas like The Company is Nev Campbell, who has ballet training, and then a bunch of real, and Franco, and then a bunch of real ballet performers.
Is Malcolm McDowell in that? There's an older actor in the film?
It's certainly not Peter Gallagher, because that's Center Stage.
Okay.
3 years earlier, which is one of my favorites.
Yeah, Prairie Home Companion's wonderful. That was a great film for him to go out on. Didn't he have Paul Thomas Anderson on set as kind of like what was his job there? Was just in case?
Yeah, it was. So if you're of a certain age and your insurance demands you have a backup director, and Paul Thomas Anderson was that backup. There was another Altman backup, I think, for Gosford Park, and I forgot who it was.
Oh,
in
So does that go
2001.
for actors too, or just directors?
I think just directors. Actor,
Okay.
you go to your trailer and you piss off for a while.
There wasn't
Director,
like
it's yeah,
on the set of On Golden Pond, there wasn't like a backup guy waiting to if Henry Fonda didn't make it through.
right. No, I can't see who the backup on Gosford Park was, but
But
if somebody be like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense.
well, if there was a backup on Gosford Park, Robert Altman won the best director at the Golden Globes. The backup guy should have come up there with him.
Right.
But yeah, those are great picks. I've been thinking about revisiting The Company. I'm still to this day a huge Nev Campbell fan, and that was kind of one of her rare kind of Oscar buzzy movies that came out and faded. So I might revisit that sometime.
Totally.
So I went with. It's funny when you said I'm not going to go with the obvious. I was like, is he going to say? He's going to say this one, and then you didn't. You said Babylon and Hail Caesar, which are great. I went with. I was like, what in the last 10 years? Like, what's one that really sticks out in my mind that I really loved, and I just had a great time with it. I haven't seen it since it came out in theaters. But I loved The Disaster Artist. It's really great. What do you think of that movie?
I don't like the book or the movie very much.
Oh, you don't like it? Is it because it's making fun of movies?
No, I just don't think Franco's much of a director.
Oh, because
I think the tone of that film is way off. Like, it is cool. Like, I didn't like the book because it was more like, haha, look at this silly thing we made. Whereas, like, no, like The Room is a very important film. And you are related to its long-term history. Like, Scott Gardner is one of the guys who made it famous.
Yeah, Scott Gardner. He was one of the first 6 like people to see it like opening weekend.
Right, like at like the Lamley up on.
So
up on
I wonder if my affection for The Room, for the book The Disaster Artist, for the movie The Disaster Artist kind of comes from my friendship with Scott and the whole story surrounding that movie.
He's mentioned in the book.
Part of it's influenced by that a bit, but when I saw The Disaster Artist in the theater, I had a smile on my face the whole time. I absolutely loved it.
No, most people really liked it. Like, it got an Oscar nomination for screenplay from the people who had been adapted.
Yeah, and of course there's been
The Spectacular Now.
Yeah, and then right around the time of that movie, there have been allegations against James Franco, and he's one of those Hollywood members who have been kind of shunted to the side since 2017, 2018. So it's kind of like his last like great role in a movie.
Totally. No, and no, I like him as Tommy Wiseau quite a bit. And I love Dave Franco as Greg Sestero. Like, I love the cult around The Room because well, I've seen it with Tommy in person and with Greg in person. Tommy still thinks like, oh, I meant to do this. I'm like, you asshole, don't say that. Like, he's really trying to squeeze as much money out of this as possible. Whereas you and I lived in LA and we saw that billboard on Fairfax for like a decade. I'm like, no, and before it became popular, I'm like, the frick is that? So everybody who lives in LA for those 10 years is a part of the history.
Have you seen the trailer of his new movie?
I had friends who saw it in Portland a couple of weeks ago. They drove down from Seattle. I'm like, I'm not going to drive 3 hours for Tommy Wiseau. Whereas Greg Sestero is very open and heartfelt about this movie. It's like, I know we screwed up, but thank you so much for making this a part of your life. I found a career as a result. So he tours with the movie way better. The lead actor.
Yeah. I just feel like that story needed to be told in a movie, and I'm happy that the book came. And that I love the ensemble in that. Jackie Weaver's really funny in the movie. Zac Efron has a great cameo. Like, there's just a lot of great talent in the film throughout.
Oh yeah. It seemed like they had a blast. It's a great screenplay.
Yeah. And there's a lot of fly on the wall filmmaking in Disaster Artist that reminds me a little bit of Day for Night. So I
remember like Stevie and I were both disappointed in that. We saw it at the SIF Egyptian. We saw like a matinee, and then we came home and I put on Ed Wood, which is one of the great movies about filmmaking.
Oh, right. Oh, that'd be a good title too, Ed Wood. If we went back to 94, that's a great one too.
Yeah, too bad. Like, yeah, because you said 20 years, but like Ed Wood is probably in my top 20 films of all time. I'm like, this is how you make a movie about bad movies.
Yeah.
Not whatever Franco did. But that's me.
Yeah. No, that would be a good double feature choice too. And Ed Wood is so timeless with the black and white. I mean, that feels like it kind of could be made any time. So yeah, that would be a good title too. Any other movies about movies that come to mind that we didn't mention?
Not about movies, and I mentioned this earlier. It's 91, Soap Dish, the soap opera movie.
About soap opera
with Sally Field and Kevin Kline. That's a great movie with a very unfortunate twist at the end that has not aged well.
Oh, is it like isn't Kathy Moriarty a man or something?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Like that and Ace Ventura 3 years later with
Ace
the reveal
Ventura.
shot. I'm like, oh no, 90s, what's happening? Because otherwise,
Yeah,
Soap Dish is a tremendous farce.
right.
It's so good. And on the opposite end of a terrible movie about making a movie, Judd Apatow's The Bubble from last year on Netflix,
Oh, right.
which
I watched that.
I only watched it because the Flophouse covered it. I never thought I would because I'm like, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes long. What are you talking about? So I watched it in the middle of the night a few weeks ago. I'm like, okay, this is pretty bad, but I enjoyed seeing a few people in this. Like, I'm the one person who actually enjoys the Apatow daughters. I think they're both interesting actresses
Oh, okay. Hmm.
because their mother's such a good actress and their dad's
Are they
just such a
both?
weirdo.
I thought it was just Maud. Is there
It's
the
just
other
it's
one's an
just
actor too?
Maud, but
Okay.
yeah, no, it's Iris. Maud is on Euphoria.
Oh,
I think I
okay.
had the
But Maud isn't. Oh, is
it,
Maud not
it's the
in the
younger
bubble?
one in the bubble, and I think
Oh,
they are both.
gotcha.
I'm saying that I think they're both better than the people who cry nepotism think they are. I think they're
Okay.
interesting. Maud just got to do Little Shop of Horrors off Broadway as Audrey, and apparently she was good.
Oh, cool. I love Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
know
so
you do.
some titles there to check out for sure. Our final segment, Beyond the Flick, Francois Truffaut. So okay, so you watched everything.
I have seen every single one of his feature
What
films and
are
most of
the
his shorts.
top three?
The top three is Stolen Kisses from 1968. That is the third Antoine Doinel movie,
Oh,
and it
okay.
is done as a screwball detective comedy. So,
Oh,
like I said, I like Truffaut when he's playful, and that will go into my three choices. That's a lovely film that doesn't. It's not masturbatory like the next two, especially Love on the Run, which is mostly a clip show of previous Antoine Doinel stories as he takes a train and wonders, what have I done to women? As he writes a novel about banging a lot of women.
I don't think I've seen any of the follow-ups to
They're
400 Blows.
all
I'm
on
trying to
Criterion
remember.
Channel.
I feel like I watched one of them on Criterion a few years ago, and I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah,
It
Antoine
wouldn't have been
Collette
Bed and
is only
Board.
30 minutes long.
Oh, okay. The second one is the short one.
Yeah.
Okay. It might have been Bed and Board. What's the
Bed and
fourth
Board,
one?
yeah, it's the fourth one. That's once he's married to the woman he loves in the third one.
Okay. And then the last one is Love on the Run.
Yeah.
What's the other one? Stolen
400 blows.
Kisses.
Yeah, Stolen Kisses
Okay.
is number three.
Okay. And
Yeah,
that
this
that's
is
on
his
your
first.
top three.
Yeah, this is his first full length Antoine story since 400 blows.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's right at the right age where he's sort of playing with form and not like, obviously Antoine is a stand-in for him. Like, it starts with him. So like Truffaut was he didn't know his father. He had a stepfather, but he mostly lived with his grandparents. So he doesn't really know how to treat women very well since he didn't have a mother figure, and that figures into his movies very heavily. Um, so he dropped out of high school. He was kicked out of high school like at 14. So he's like self-taught. And at the top of Stolen Kisses, he's in the brig in the army because Truffaut joined the army because he thought it would bring him some substance and purpose, but then he hated immediately and kept on going AWOL, and they kept on putting him in the brig. So Stolen Kisses starts with him being kicked out of the army dishonorably,
Okay.
and then joining a detective agency that tracks people having affairs. So he gets to combine this obsession with women with a silly little detective plot. And it's a gorgeous, gorgeous film.
Okay. Yeah, this looks really interesting. As
It's
a
so
fan of
good.
400 Blows, I need to see Stolen Kisses. This looks really good.
Yeah. My second one you mentioned earlier, which is Small Change,
Yay!
aka Pocket Money, which is back with working with children, and it's this very loose episodic narrative about like a year in the life of some school children.
Mhm.
It focuses on two boys, but not entirely. Like, one is from a wealthy family, one is being beaten by his single father, and it's just a glimpse in the lives of this provincial town in France. And it's just little bits of memories from him. It fits in really well with the 400 blows, which is not a full like overarching narrative, but like bits of his childhood. And this has, first love and, sneaking into the movies and having a teacher who cares about you. And it's just gorgeous. And it was Ebert's favorite movie of that year.
Okay. Maybe that's where I first heard of it, like around the time I saw it in French class, seeing that on Roger Ebert's top 10 list.
Yeah, and Pauline Kael really liked it. Pauline Kael, who liked Truffaut but was very harsh on him. Like, she's not the biggest fan of Day for Night because he thinks it's substanceless, which is kind of true from one angle. She's like, this one he finally combines like his lyricism with his humor, because he is a blackly comic person. Like, even his dramas, they're funny if you kind of squint your eyes a little bit, but it can be hard to get around some of the like the monotone narrative, which drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And
So what's number one?
I'm just talking about. I would say number one is Stolen Kisses. So I'm going one, two, and three.
Oh, okay. So
Sorry
your
about that.
favorite, so your favorite of the all of the movies you watched was Stolen Kisses?
Well, okay, I forgot to preface this. Let's push 400 Blows and Jules and Jim and Day for Night out of the way. Jules and Jim and 400 Blows, those changed cinema. Obviously, those are incredible films.
Right.
So let's talk about one of his other films.
Gotcha.
And also, let's not talk about Day for Night because we just did it for 90 minutes. So
Yeah.
number one is Stolen Kisses,
Uh-huh.
which is I would say is my favorite. And then the other two can exist with these other ones. So small change. And then my third, which is not well liked, his final film, Confidentially Yours, aka Finally Sunday.
Okay, so
With Fanny,
take me through his final film. What's that all about?
it's a Fanny Ardant led film. That was his actress and girlfriend at the time. She was in The Woman Next Door, which is a fascinating movie, but also desperately sad and intense in a way that I'm like, okay, get over yourself. No, Linklater loves it. Confidentially Yours he is making a Hitchcock / Hawks movie. It is a black and white detective noir about a detective who has to a detective is accused of murdering two people, and so his secretary goes and does his job for him and goes into the deep underbelly of Nice. And it is shot like a movie from the 40s and 50s, but is also set present day because like they'll be like it's also a comedy. Like there'll be like a snarky little detective line, and then you'll see them like drive the Volvo my aunt drove in the 80s. It is divisive, and it being his final film is not helpful, but it is just a delight if you like detective noir from that era that he was obsessed with when he was a critic for Cahiers du Cinema. Confidentially Yours is streaming on Criterion Channel.
Oh, right now.
Yeah, it is such goofy fun. I love very straightforward but silly stories like that. So I like his looser films, his more fun films, and that's a me thing.
Yeah. So that's on IMDb it says that Confidentially Yours is his final film and a tribute to Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah.
So the Hitchcockian films he made were Confidentially Yours and The Bride Wore Black. Those are the two.
You'd probably love The Bride Wore Black. This is more of like do you like Down with Love?
I've never seen it. I'm watching it for its 20th anniversary. It came out in May of 03 and I have it on my Netflix DVD. I'm going to watch it the next month.
It's so good. So that and Far From Heaven, which came out around the same time, are facsimiles of the movies they are satirizing, and they do it so beautifully. This is a wonderful trilogy. It's Confidentially Yours, Down with Love, and Todd Haynes' Far From Heaven, which is a Douglas Sirk film. You've never seen Down with Love?
No, it came out right before I graduated from high school. It was like a busy couple weeks, and I just missed that one. That's
the last film I saw at the Oak Theater in Albany, California. R.I.P. No, in Berkeley, California. It was a single screen that turned into a split screen. It's a truly delightful movie. It's one of the great movies of the aughts. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So something I do not for this podcast is I pick a movie released 20 years ago. Every month I pick one film that came out 20 years ago that I've never seen, and the one in May that I've never seen is Down with Love. So I'm going to watch that in a few weeks. I'm very excited about it.
Do you have a Blu-ray or a DVD?
It'll be a DVD. Yeah.
Watch it on the highest definition possible.
Maybe I'll find it streaming or something. Maybe I'll find it like a better copy. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, not a big deal. I know the old DVD is not anamorphic, so it gets really small on your screen. You have to zoom.
Okay.
That's the one I have. And I finally bought the Blu-ray because I love the movie that much.
So yeah, I mean, part of the reason I do this podcast, Marcus, is to learn things. And now I'm like, I didn't even know that Truffaut had made Hitchcockian films. That's news to me, and I'm very excited.
He also made a movie called The Soft Skin, which I'm not a huge fan of because I think the lead performer is a little dull. But that is using Hitchcock style onto a melodrama, which is a curious thing to look at.
Okay, nice.
Yeah,
and I'm sure. I mean, they come in and out and everything, but I feel like Criterion will always have a couple of his titles somewhere, right?
Yeah,
they'll have like on the channel. Like I feel like there's more to discover here. Anything else, even if you didn't love it, anything else that if you saw all of them, like is there one more that pops out as like
yes? I mentioned this earlier that he would adapt books that he was obsessed with. A good movie is called The Green Room, based off of a Henry James story, but Truffaut stars himself. And the print
Okay.
that's out there is a really bad print, so I didn't watch it properly, in my
Oh,
opinion.
okay.
That's really strong. But of the like historical ones or the period pieces, 1975 is the story of Adele H. with Isabella Adjani, who got an Oscar nomination out of it.
Oh, okay.
That's about Victor Hugo's daughter who follows a British soldier she had an affair with to Halifax, and she thinks they're going to get married, and he's like, "You're crazy," and it's her obsession, desperately trying to track down and betroth the soldier who barely remembers her, and it's as good of a performance as Possession.
Okay. Well, if I'm still doing this in 2 years, that's his follow-up to Day for Night. That's
Yeah,
75.
it's really cool, and it's based off of letters he read one day.
I just talked about Isabella Johnny a little bit for my Michelle Pfeiffer video because she was nominated in 1990 for Best Actress for Camille Claudel, the year that Pfeiffer got in for The Fabulous Baker Boys, and Jessica Tandy won. I was like, who is this Isabella Johnny? I want to learn more. And then I looked and I saw that she was in a Truffaut film from the 70s. So that's his follow-up to Day for Night. Very cool.
Very cool film. The print out there is not very good, but what can you do?
What's the worst movie you watched? Like, what's the one that's like really awful?
Not of Truffaut's. None of them are awful, but I would put The Men Who Loved Women pretty low.
Okay.
And A Gorgeous Kid / A Gorgeous Girl Like Me. The Men Who Loved Women. It's more of like it's about like a philanderer who writes a book about philandering, and then they remake it 5 years later. Blake Edwards and Burt Reynolds, which apparently is just a garbage film. So like, no wonder. I had the same problem with Blake Edwards. A lot of his movies are about, oh, I'm horny for women, and you're going to watch me be horny about women. Like, I can't stand 10, the very famous Dudley Moore, Julie Andrews, Derek movie, because it's just gross.
Yeah, Blake Edwards put his wife through a lot of crazy things.
Yeah, like SOB, I just found it boring. No, he's a good filmmaker. I love the Pink Panther movies. I love Victor Victoria, but a lot of his like sex farces just don't work for me because I'm like, you're an old creepy man. I can't believe Julie Andrews put up with that for decades. I guess he's lovely in real life.
Okay. Yeah, we'll never know. But yeah, so my three were Small Change. I'd have to see it again, but I think Fahrenheit 451 would be at the top there. I really think that's an interesting film. It's of note that it's his only English language movie. Julie Christie, I remember, is really kind of haunting in that film and into playing two characters, and great book. And the new one's not really that good, so the one to watch still to this day is the 66 Truffaut version.
Oh, it's really good. Like that was in my backups. I really, really enjoy that film. It's beautifully designed. It's very creepy and funny.
Yeah. And it like you can feel Truffaut's touch in it. Like it feels like him, which I like too. And then the best one for sure is the 400 Blows. I've seen that twice, and I loved it even more the second time. It's just that's his debut, right? This is his first feature.
That's his first feature.
What an astonishing feature film debut.
Yeah, he made two shorts. I've seen one, which is The Brats, Lemiston, which is 18 minutes long. It's good, but it's a good warm up for 400 Blows, which is just a tremendous film that changed history.
Absolutely. And then I think at LMU I saw Shoot the Piano Player and Jules and Jim, but I don't remember them very much, so I couldn't put them on the list because I was like, I think one of the two was really great, at least, and I can't remember anything about them, but so I have to watch those again. And then I really want to see the continued stories of Antoine. That's been on my list for a while, so I would love for Criterion to just have like a month where they just have all 5 films, because it's been at least 10 years since I've seen 400 Blows, and I'd love to just spend a month, just like one a week or something, and just watch all of them back.
Hey, guess what? They're all on Criterion Channel right now.
They are?
They are.
All right, I gotta finish Michelle Yeoh Kicks Ass. I have like 2 left.
Yeah,
but I'll get
yeah. Just type in Truffaut; it'll show everything that is up on him. But yeah,
I've been watching. Have you seen any of the Michelle Yeoh Kicks Ass movies? They're so great.
No, I haven't watched them on Criterion, but like I assume you watched the Heroic Trio.
No, that's the next one. I just finished Super Cop, Police Story 3. The next one's Heroic Trio.
Right. No, I saw Super Cop in theaters when it was called Super Cop in America when they dubbed it. So I saw them in the 90s.
Yeah.
No, Heroic Trio is
something. Okay. That's
it's whack-a-ding-a-doodle.
Okay. And then of course, just throughout, I love also his appearance in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That's a great movie, and he's a fantastic addition to it. What a cool casting idea from Spielberg to have him be in that film. And he's not talked about enough as a great actor. He can be a really terrific actor too.
He's good. He's good in his own films.
Yeah. All right, that takes us to the end here, Marcus. Thanks for returning to Film at 50. This episode is dropping at the beginning of May, so if you want to talk about the upcoming Seattle Film Festival, anything else you'd like to promote, now would be the time.
Yes, the Seattle International Film Festival is playing in Seattle from May 11th through 21st, and then around 50 films will play virtually on the SIF channel May 22nd through 28th. I program new American cinema and genre films for the festival, and I'm also one of the publication's editors. I am a projectionist at Grand Illusion Cinema. Go to grandillusioncinema.org, Seattle's smallest and weirdest movie theater, entirely volunteer run. And Make Believe Seattle has already come and gone, but we're coming back next year in March. And check out the Tallgrass Independent Film Festival in Wichita, Kansas in early September. And other than that, I'm working on plays and films.
All right, very cool. Well, thanks again, Marcus, for being here. Thanks to all of you for listening. You can find us online at film50.com. We're on Twitter and Instagram. Check out my YouTube channel, Brian Rowe Video, for all things Oscars. And until next time, remember, 50 never looked this good.